hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And yes, it is Judd's Hockey Show. It might be hot as Hades out there, 90 plus today, but there's always hockey news. It is Judd, it is AJ, and the smarts and looks of the show, no question about it, from the Bardown Beauties. Jessi Pierce also does a fantastic job covering the Wild for NHL.com. We're going to talk about the Faber extension. We're also going to get into Kaprizov because his contract situation is going to come to a head before you know that as well. But Jessi and Age, before we start, I definitely want to talk to you about something that we got going on right now at Score North. It's the Score North Power of Sports auction benefiting the Courage Kenny Rehabilitation Institute. All week long, we have multiple great experiences to buy or bid on. ScoreNorth.com/auction, ScoreNorth.com/auction. I want to talk about one in particular because if you are watching JHS, you are undoubtedly a hockey fan. And if you're a hockey fan, this package is awesome. All right. It's called a VIP Wild Game Experience. So you're like, okay, sports dad, what's that? What is the VIP Wild Game Experience? Well, it's 16 premium suite tickets in the suite that we have. Jessi and Age have both been in the suite, and both can confirm it is at center ice. To your left,
Beauty.
To your left is the owner's suite. Appetizers and soft drinks are in the suite. There is a bar right down from the suite. This is on an exclusive hoity-toity level, so it's fantastic. You will also get 6 Wild backpacks loaded with golfing accessories. Jessi is now very intrigued.
Let's go.
A goalie stick signed by multiple players. I want that personally. And then a Wild jersey signed by all members of the 2023 roster. Again, ScoreNorth.com/auction. The suite is fantastic. I will be there for the game. Age will. Jessi, I have a feeling if I come up to the press box and say, come on down, you will also sit in the suite, talk to the folks who come, potentially go in this as a group. You know, you got some buddies. You can each go in as a group. But I'm going to tell you right now, as far as game experiences go, it's fantastic. It's so close to the owner suite that you can watch Leopold's TV for replays. You're like right by it. So again, ScoreNorth.com/auction. Yes, Age.
This past year, I was at the big 10-goal outburst where they beat the Canucks, and I brought my buddy Joe, and Joe hadn't been there yet. Sitting right next to the suite, Craig Leopold. It was like every single goal, fist pump, boom, boom, boom. I still hear to this day, he's like, I can't believe I got knuckles from the owner of the Minnesota Wild, like a knuckle bump after the Kaprizov hat trick. I'm like, yeah, Joe, but that could be you. I know I can't. I don't have 16 friends, so my money is wasted on this. I've seen the memorabilia. Ross Brendel in the office has told me that my job is in jeopardy if those go missing. So somebody else better not take it.
Awesome.
Backpacks look awesome. I've seen the stick. I've seen the jersey. The suite is amazing. Definitely go bid because that is it's more than just an experience. It's awesome. It's incredible.
And the view. You can't beat a view like that. Both ends of the ice. It's just glorious.
So
that's my type. Forget on the glass. I'm always up. I need to see the full thing of the ice. And it beats my view in the press box too. So I would love to come hang out and say hi and talk some puck with some people that day.
Absolutely. And you are so right. On the glass, it's cool for like a game just because the game's so quick, but you can't see anything. This suite, you can see everything. And again, the Courage Kenny folks do just great work. I've gone there a couple times and seen the work that they do with people who basically, get in an accident and they think that their life is done, and Courage Kenny gets them back on their feet. Fantastic work. So ScoreNorth.com/auction. All right, let's get to it. Jess, Age and I did an emergency podcast on Monday when the Faber news came down. 21-year-old defenseman who plays like he's 28, 8-year contract, AAV 8.5 million per, doesn't kick in this year. It kicks in 2025-26. I heard you ask, I would say that you asked a question or two at the press conference, but I was listening driving to the Vikings practice, and you basically asked all the questions at the
As I
press
tend to
conference.
do. As
I don't know
tend
if
to
nobody
do.
else came. Was Russo not there? Was nobody else there?
Nobody else was there. Truly, it was myself. Joe Smith had jumped in from The Athletic.
Okay.
And John Shipley from the Pioneer Press showed up late.
Okay.
And
you ran it.
That was I ran. I did my job.
Well, I mean, you did a good job. But you ran that. So your thoughts on Brock Faber now being extended and definitely part of this team's plan for the future for a long portion of it?
I mean, first of all, my thoughts are Bill Guerin needs to apologize to my 5-year-old because we had just gotten out to Willow River Waterfalls, which is a good half-hour drive from White Bear Lake. Pulled in, parked, was walking down, and I get a text message from Minnesota Wild PR saying Bill Guerin and Brock Faber will be available in an hour. And I was like, for what? And I was like, crap. It's a Monday. And then I laughed. My husband's like, well, it is a Monday. And I'm like, I know. So I literally left in my swimsuit from Willow River, didn't go swimming, went home, changed, and made it down to the X2 run show at the press conference.
I admire you so much. I love that stuff.
So
I love that stuff. You know what? This is why you're great. Because you look at something and say, you know what? See a kid, gotta go. I was with my now late mom in July of, was it 2012 or 13 at Caribou? July 4th, right? Getting coffee with mom, catching up. I get the note, oh my God, Parisian Suitor. Mm-hmm. I said, Mom, love ya. Gotta go.
Gotta split.
Gotta split. So
part of the job.
Good for you. Your thoughts on this?
I love it. I mean, I do. Put all the romanticism of the hometown kid aside and the person that Brock Faber is, who is a really good person. It makes sense. He absolutely deserves it. He has not near hit his ceiling. He's 21 years old. We keep talking about building toward the future. Brock Faber needs to be a part of that future. There's no doubt in my mind he is a number one defenseman. He showed that last year when you look at Jared Spurgeon kind of probably coming to an end in his career, or at least minimally his time here as his contract starts to dwindle down. You got to start looking at those younger guys, and Brock Faber is that person, no doubt about it. He's the person that I see wearing the C for this organization in no time as well. So Congrats to him. I think what I really loved was Bill Guerin just continued to reiterate, this isn't just about Brock Faber as the hockey player, it's Brock Faber the person. And Brock had his mom and dad in there, and they've raised a tremendous human being. So in addition to being a very skilled hockey player, it's nice to have a good human of that quality in that room. We all know how Bill Guerin stresses the importance of that. And in general, the term and the money, it makes sense. He again deserves that. I think there were only 5 defensemen, last year in the National Hockey League who played more minutes than Brock Faber, right? And Brock Faber played in all situations at 21 years old. I do not see that dissipating at all. I think he's just going to continue to grow, continue to develop. He's already an elite player. That's not going to change. Kudos to Bill Guerin for getting this done now and locking up the Maple Grove child, if you will, because he's still a kid, and look forward to seeing him in a Wild uni for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, and at the age too, like you said, there's really no, knock on wood, if there is some sort of injury that happens, like I have full confidence that it's something that he could rehab, recuperate from, and get back, and he's back to 100%, health. It's not something that would like linger. He's still so early in his career, and to your point, Jessi, you could say he's elite right now, but he's not even close to like what I think his ceiling could be. So to get him at this term, at that price point you have him now with it kicking in after a year, another 9 seasons. I mean, it's an incredible deal of business on both sides. He definitely deserves it, but Bill Guerin and crew, I think hats off to them for taking the initiative to get it done this summer rather than trying to wait and negotiate it mid-season or this time next summer.
And Faber's dealt with significant injuries. You go back to his year at the U. I can't remember if that was maybe his sophomore season or heading into his junior, where he was hurt and out for quite some time, and he was able to bounce back to your point, age there. And yeah, I mean, he's got a lot. I remember, I think Judd, you and I talked about this when we saw him after a couple games of playoffs in his first season after he signed with the Wild, and we were like, this kid is going to be a very, very, very good NHL defenseman. And now the Minnesota Wild get to say he is our very, very, very good NHL defenseman for a very long time to come. So, I love it. It's one that I don't have any qualms about at all. I don't even have any qualms about obviously the no move and no trade.
I was just going to
kicking
say
in toward the end, right? That's great.
They are those clauses are there for this. Like I will completely backtrack on my hate for no move and no trade, because when those are given to veteran journeymen, or guys that are long in the tooth, I hate that. And plus, so one, this kid deserves that. Two, I think the no move clause means that you can't be sent down, but I think it's a 15 team no trade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a full. So like if something happens, he can be traded. And as Age and I discussed on Monday, Jess, I also believe that the AAV on this with the cap going up is going to be a bargain.
Oh, heck yeah.
Like I think he signed a hometown contract.
Mm-hmm.
This is not oh my God, he broke the bank contract. So I know that we are very prickly about the cap, and I understand that completely. But in this case, I think that it's a great contract. It's very fair. But in a few years, you're going to see guys flying by him left and right. And so I don't see a downside here. He's such a smooth player. To your point, he's a great kid. But more importantly, to me, he's just, as Bill Guerin called him, minutes-eating defenseman. Here's my one question, because I'm with you, Jess. I think he will be a captain. Like, he's got that grounded captain. And he's young, so I don't expect this now. And I'll try to phrase this right. How nasty or take control do you think he can be? Because the one thing is, that room, you don't need to be an a-hole for sure. So I'm not saying that. But, it feels like traditionally that this team has been in predicaments where you don't have the Messier enough is enough type guy. We're going to do this right. How much do you think he can grow into that role?
I think he could, right? Like, I think he takes any leadership role that he's ever given very seriously. And I think that's just part of growing up and becoming a man, frankly, because he's still 21 years old, is still a boy to me in a sense, right? Like, you can grab a couple beers, go to a frat party. I don't know what those people do anymore. It's ridiculous. But I think he could, but also that's where you can lean on maybe some of those louder, more prickly voices in the room too. I don't know if Matt Boldy necessarily is that answer. That's another foundational piece that you've locked up for a long time to come, but maybe it is kind of a good cop, bad cop scenario, because you're right, Judd. I think that's been lacking for the past couple of years, is having that person. But as we've always discussed, you don't need a letter to take that type of ownership. Matt Zuccarello, I think, is very much that voice in the locker room, and he's not wearing a letter, right? So I think, you take that with a grain of salt, but I certainly believe he will grow into a tremendous leader. And again, I'd be almost shocked at this point if he wasn't wearing a C at some time during his tenure with the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, right now the Wild with Spurgeon, they kind of have that soft-spoken, like, lead by example. Maybe he doesn't have to tear into a guy, but maybe Foligno or somebody else steps up and does that. I'm not as worried, because I think with time and age, that kind of like chip on the shoulder, that kind of grizzled, harder, sharper edge maybe develops on him. But Brock, as we've seen, even this past season, in some of their really poor stretches, who was the guy that was out in front of cameras, out in front of microphones, stepping up and taking the blunt of the, hey, you guys really didn't have it tonight. You want to elaborate on that? He was available, it seemed like, to media anytime they needed it. And I'm sure, Jessi, you can probably speak to that, being down in the locker room after every single game. But it seems like he has no problem putting himself out there to represent the logo that's on the front of his sweater, which, one, goes into just how much it was important to get this guy locked down. But to both your points, at some point, there's going to be a C on his chest. I don't know how much you necessarily need that, like, sharp edge, but he's going to, I think, develop something where you're going to have a guy who's more outspoken, which I think is great for a locker room, rather than having to, the buddy that I think, I'm not saying he does, because I don't know, I'm not in the locker room, but it seems like from observations and the perception of others, is that Jared Spurgeon just doesn't have that type of grittiness. I don't see him tearing into somebody if they take a couple shifts off. I just don't see Jared Spurgeon doing that. Brock Faber might be able to in a couple years.
Right. And Brock's a straight shooter, right? And you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I mean, as Brock continued to garner more national attention, even so, that was the guy that we would always go to. And he had that role at the University of Minnesota. He had that role with Team USA at World Juniors too. And, maybe give him a couple more first round losses with the Minnesota Wild to start getting pissed off like the rest of us do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's also that to be considered. He's a guy that wants
What kid did you just stiff armed a kid?
I just what?
You can find out what's going on.
I know.
Yeah.
Go eat something then.
Are they hungry?
Well, Mom, if you're not going to make it, how am I supposed to eat it?
That was a pretty quick.
That was an impressive. You talk about being a captain.
Vikings need somebody. Just get out of here.
Bang!
One
Boom!
shot. I could see him out of the corner of my eye.
It's like a
here
Batman
it comes.
episode from the
Here it
60s.
comes. No, but I mean, I do. I think he's, he's a player that hates to lose, right? And he has that competitive drive enough to where he is going to start getting upset. Like, hey, this isn't good enough. I am signed here. He's going to realize I signed here for a reason. I signed here to win a Stanley Cup. It's about winning, as they continue to say. And so I think that'll come. You the older you get, the more angry you get, Judd. We know this, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I will say this. He reminds me in some ways, and they might be very different people. Hello. Of Kirill. Because like Kirill, you could tell hates to lose. Like Kirill's pissed off. He's, he speaks the language better, but it's not perfect. And I think, he's got that soft, boyish face. But I feel like Brock, who's got the same thing, I feel like Brock and Kirill are very much on the same wavelength as far as absolutely despising losses.
Yeah, I mean, that go for national championship still eats away at him, right? And certainly, I think there was a sadness versus an anger a little bit, but it was probably both. We just didn't get to see that. And same with Spurge, right? I don't know how he is necessarily behind the scenes, behind the curtain. I don't picture him being the guy that's like, hey, where the heck were you on that last shift, or what was going on? And I think the room needs more of that without question. Brock, I just see that he could maybe be a little bit, turn the heat up if it needs to be.
Prickly.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like Spurgeon, to me, not that I don't think he can have those type of conversations, but he seems like a guy that's going to, wait till after practice or something, wait till after the game and say, hey, can we step out in the hallway really quick? And then say, hey, here's what I saw.
Yeah.
Not really raise his voice. Brock, to me, to your point being about straight shooter, as soon as the period ends or something like that, I see him in the locker room, hey, Zuki, get your butt in gear. Like, let's go. Like, Johansson, get off the wall and get to the dirty area. I see him confronting that a little bit more. And those are just examples. I don't know where those came from, just, but yeah, that's what I think Brock kind of brings to the team. And so we'll have to see how he blossoms into that leadership role, more so even as his tenure here unfolds.
So, Jess, as you controlled that press conference, are there any other news or notes to come from Bill Guerin's accessibility on Monday for the media?
No, I mean, you know me, I was pretty soft. I was like, we're all in a good mood. I don't need to spoil it. But I didn't really have any pressing.
Dragged you off of the beach or something. You should have gone after him.
I know. I didn't have any pressing questions anyway. Everybody's healthy heading into camp. Marcus Foligno still has not quite yet started skating, which is to be expected. Okay. I think he's still on track. He's been working out. Jared Spurgeon's been working out. So everybody should be ready and fit to go come mid-September when camp opens here. So that's exciting. Nice. Otherwise, we kept it kind of focused and jovial and light. Like, hey, congrats, Brock. He, if this doesn't speak to what a humble kid he is, Bill Guerin had mentioned, oh, you can go buy that cabin that you wanted. And Brock's like, nah, I'm not going to buy it. Like, go buy a cabin. Buy me a cabin, Brock. Like,
no, he's like, I'm going to grandma's.
Yeah, he said he was his grandpa's. But yes,
or grandpa's.
Same thing.
Grandparents.
Grandparents.
He's so young, he has grandparents.
I know. God, what a life.
I remember those days.
Yeah, but actually, no, there was nothing really. I mean, again, it wasn't, I don't think, a surprise that they got this done. I did, almost try to tiptoe around, okay, when do the conversations with Kirill Kaprizov begin what I want to then, get right? Next. So let's dive there, Judd. Let's take it away.
Okay, so just for context, Kirill is on a 5-year contract. There's 2 years left at $9 million per 2024-25, obviously this coming season, and then 25-26. He's 27. He's a superstar. The Faber contract being done long-term is great news. This, though, to me becomes I think if you think about it, this is going to become pressing very quickly because if you've been a Wild fan for a long time, you went through the Doug Riseborough, Marion Gaborik kerfuffle. And Gaborik walked for nothing. Riseborough, I think, had chances to trade him. He sort of, I think, bet on himself that they could keep him in a Wild jersey. Gaborik was a phenomenal player. He left. Kirill is a better player. So, what do you think or how do you see this playing out? And do you agree with me that I think we are a summer away from, if Kirill Kaprizov balks at a contract going into his last year, I don't think that you can try to stall. Like, I think you either trade him and maximize that. If you trade him in July of next year, which would be horrendous to have to do, you're going to maximize his value. Your next chip would be the trade deadline. And the only thing is, he's Russian. And the Russians love New York. I don't know about Los Angeles. I know they love Florida. So, with all that context, what is your opinion about the Kirill Kaprizov contract situation?
I'm not even going to mention the T word and Kirill Kaprizov in the same sentence yet. I'll let you do that. I'll steer clear of that in the comments.
I prefer not to, but it's a reality.
The reality is, I think this year is very telling. I think how the team performs this year is going to tell Kirill Kaprizov everything he needs to know about his future and what he wants to do. There's no way that Kirill doesn't know at the end of this year, whether they make playoffs or whatever, if it's an organization he wants to continue to be a part of, right? I think he knows what he wants. He wants to be on a winning team, and that's, it is what it is, and you can't blame him for that. That's what we love. That's why he's the little bulldog that we absolutely love to have here. So yeah, I think Liam Ogren and Murat Huznadinov having really, really good years is going to be huge, right? I think obviously the Wild making the playoffs is going to be everything, because you can only tell a player like Kirill Kaprizov or really any competitor, hey, it's going to be better in another year. It's going to be better. You have to show them. Now is the time to show him. You've told him this for a couple of years. I'm sure Kirill went into the season aware of kind of where the Wild were at, but now you've put your pieces in place. You've got your Boldy, you've got your Faber, you've got your Jules Eric's neck locked up for a bit too, who's another big piece of that foundation. Okay, what else are you giving me? Is Liam Ogren it? Is Marco Rossi the player? Is Danilia Yurov coming over and going to be a huge part of that? And how's the goaltending situation? It's Jesper Bellsted, and what? Is Jesper going to be that guy? And obviously he is, no question. But I think this is the show me year. It's show me that this is the team that you're promising me it's going to be. And if they don't, then yeah, I don't disagree that you would trade him, because you can't. You might talk trade. You might talk trade because you can't lose a player like that. Right. Somebody that has been so integral, the best player to come through this organization, hands down, no question. You can't let him walk for nothing. And hey, Bill Guerin made it happen with Kevin Fiala, who could have walked for nothing, except they traded him. So I don't think Guerin would necessarily shy away from that, because he wants to get something out of that too.
AJ?
Yeah,
say it.
When it comes to the Gaborik thing, I was, I think, 12 when the season rolled around.
Yeah, that's great.
Not to date you guys, but
yeah, you started.
Wow, you guys! I'm not that much older than you, AJ.
That's true. Yeah, we're more in the same boat here, Jessi. But Judd, I should say. But I was kind of under the impression, like, what do you mean he's not coming back, Dad? What do you mean he's not still with the Wild? But I fully understand the weight and the importance of this one. Kirill Kaprizov, I mean, he's the best player, skill-wise, whatever-wise you want to say in franchise history. This is a guy that is... a lot of last season, the games that they won were solely because he willed them into positions to win and be competitive. And even when they lost, like, who was the guy that would probably put him in that position? 97, Kirill Kaprizov. This year, I know on past shows I have said that this isn't a season where you need to you don't have to go all in and make a big run. And I still don't believe that. But to what Jesse's point is, you do need to show him something. I personally don't think it hinges on making the playoffs, because, and that's just me, as long as you have the key pieces showing that steps are being made, the guys that have been performing maybe take another step to that next level. Matt Boldy plays a full 82-game season instead of taking some nights off. Jewel Eriksson still continues to be that elite kind of middle two-way center that we've seen. The defensive guys keep continuing to do their thing, and Brock Faber shows that, hey, I'm going to be an anchor here. Now you've drafted Zeev Buium. That's going to be a pairing for like the next decade for you. You don't need to show him right this year that, hey, we have scoring on all four lines. We don't, we've got a full 22-man roster who's going to go out there and punish guys. It's all about showing him that the pieces that you've invested in this farm system that you have and the prospects coming up, things are trending in the right direction. Like you can tell him to go out and surf, but if there's no waves, why is he going to stay in the water? And that's where at this point next season, I hate saying it, but if he gives you a doubt of, I would like to see, I would like to see maybe one more season before we really talk. I can't have this talk in the middle of the season, distracting everything where it's like we live and die on every game. Oh, they lost to the Kings 3-2. Kirill's pissed. He stormed off the ice. It has to be about this time next year where we have concrete decisions of, yes, things are trending in the right direction. We'll have you signed by the start or like a week into the season or something like that. But if you tell us, hey, there's a lot of hesitation here, that's going to be a real tough conversation, but you're going to have to look at getting some sort of return back because you cannot let him walk out the door for nothing. You can't, you just can't. He's way too valuable. This is not a middle six winger that you can replace in free agent. This is a high-end scoring winger that, for the most part last season, was the sole reason you found success. You just don't find one of those guys walking along the street every summer.
And I do think, just to be clear, I think that they have a very good chance to keep him.
I do too.
Jess, what's your thought on this? Because Age just essentially ran through and you did as well, excuse me, the on the ice stuff. Off the ice, what's your sense about, because he's going to get recruited, right? He's going to get recruited by someone on the Panthers, on the Rangers, on the Lightning, whatever, take your pick. What's your sense of his devotion to here? Because with Ant, with the Wolves, right? He continues to say, I love Minnesota. This team can win. I want to be here. And that's in his sport, a superstar. And you're like, okay, that is a real commitment. What's your Kirill sense on those things?
I think he likes it here. I mean, the dude loves to hunt and fish and do all those outdoorsy things. You guys see that Instagram post he's got in camo doing God knows what. I mean, I don't know that he dislikes it here by any means. I do think it would help, if Danilia's here or if Marat's here. I mean, you look at all these other Russians, they like to have one of their own, if you will, and you kind of have that bond and that kindred spirit. I mean, Brodin and Jules Eriksson are besties, right? Like it's kind of the way it works, and it makes sense because you're very out of your element. But no, I don't get the sense that he dislikes it here, which I know Minnesota needs to hear, that they like us and they want to be here and we love them back. And I do. It seems, he's found his footing. He's been here now for long enough too. He doesn't necessarily rush home, but he goes home, rushing home. That was a joke that I didn't mean to intend to make.
Right over my head.
But I know his families come over, his girlfriends come over for extended periods of time too. So he gets that taste of home when and if he needs it. But no, I don't get the sense that he's looking for bigger, because I do think Kirill is kind of like a Minnesotan. He's very kind of down to earth, kind of chill. I'm sure he appreciates the knowledge of hockey here too, because he's a guy that he eats, breathes, sleeps hockey and winning hockey. So I think he also probably enjoys that. I don't know that he would love going somewhere where they don't know the sport as much,
Yeah,
and
I don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't want to put too much weight into something off ice, like I would with better. One thing, the one thing that always catches an eye for me is the apparel guys show up to games in, because they've lessened that type of stuff over the past years. A little less restriction. Guys can show more personality. So you've seen guys with these flashy wardrobes and a bright cyan suit or whatever. I don't think Kirill has that flash, because he's got that blue collar lunch pail. I'm going to make a turkey sandwich and bring it to work type of mindset, which, to what Jessi was just saying, if he goes to a place, they got to know hockey. He's not going to go to, I guess a big market that has a small group of diehard fans. I think he enjoys Minnesota because it's a place where still, as a hockey player, you can go out in public. Not everybody's going to recognize you. And that's just the thing of being even the best hockey players in the world. You drop them into, middle of Iowa, they're not going to get recognized that often. If he goes out to LA or if he goes to New York, people are going to pick that up, but it's still more attraction. You need to put on a show sometimes where you do with like the Vegas Knights. It's a show. It's not just go for the experience of watching professional hockey players. In Minnesota, you kind of have that gritty, grit first mentality, if you want to coin their playoff motto. But I think he does enjoy it, and I don't think he's going to ever be like, I love Minnesota. It's this is a second home, at least not at this point while he still has contract talks upcoming. But I think he enjoys it enough.
I got one question. How much does he like warmth?
Yeah, sure, right.
That's a serious question. That's the Panthers thing. Look.
But I also wonder, do you want to be the big fish? Like in Minnesota, he's the big fish, right? He is everything.
Yeah.
I guess what's his gauge on that? Like Kirill doesn't scream to me like, oh, I have to be the guy. I think he has no problem playing second fiddle. Right. But also it's got to be kind of nice to be the guy. Like you can't argue that. So it's like you could stay here and continue to be him, or you could go to New York and play, I'm not saying he'd go down to like the third or fourth line, but I'm saying like be a second or third top star.
Well, Panarin loves the spotlight. Like he wanted to get out of Columbus because he was desperate for the attention that he gets with the Rangers. I don't think Kirill's like that, but I also don't think that we can just assume he's such a talented player that, oh man, he won't leave us. I mean, we've done that before too. And it's a dumb idea to assume, but I do believe that if you look that the Wild is tracking in the right direction. I know the no trades frustrate us, and I get that. But when you look at the prospect pool, when you look at what's coming, when you look at, Kirill and Faber who are here, like they have enough selling points. And the nice thing is coming out of cap hell next year, it's not like you're going to be flush with cash, but you can add guys. So I think there's enough to sell to Kirill. It's just to me like the next, if you've got a Bill Guerin checklist, this one it's coming very quickly up on you, and it's going to have to be addressed.
The other thing I kind of want to take a peek at this year would be his relationship with John Hines, right? Like, I mean, you got to kind of look at that because I know Kirill and Dean had a very, very good relationship, and I don't want to imply that there's anything wrong with John Hines and Kirill's relationship by any means, but I would just be curious to see kind of how that is, because that's going to be another factor, right? Like you want to make sure you have the right coach that can not only get the most out of Kirill, but one that Kirill really responds to. And so far, I think Hines has done fine. But again, this year is going to be a big year for him. So I think that would be another kind of thing to circle or keep an eye on as far as the Kirill negotiations go.
It's up to John Hines to make sure that relationship is flawless.
Yes.
That's on you, John. So great stuff, Jess, Age. I'm Judd, and we will see you next week for Judd's Hockey Show.